And welcome back. 6 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. And you may not have heard about it. You may not know about it. But tomorrow, the 15th of March, if I have this right, is the White Man March. Seriously. WhiteManMarch.com is the website. Kyle Hunt is a spokesperson for it. And so let's engage in a little bit of anthropology here and find out what this is all about. Kyle, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Why? First of all, where is the march and when? All that kind of thing.
The march is all around the world. It is a viral idea, and it's not necessarily a literal march. People are just being asked to go out and do something that is pro-white. This could include holding up signs, passing out literature, or engaging in some other kinds of public demonstrations.
Burning a cross?
No, I don't know why that would be necessary or good publicity.
Well, usually when I think of people who are promoting white men, I think of the KKK. Isn't
that interesting? Because you talk about white privilege a lot, and we don't actually have anybody out there that's pro-white in our media. And in fact, our media
except all those white people
is completely anti-white. Well, it's got a lot of Jewish people. But let me tell you about
that was a question I have for you, Kyle. I'm on your website, I keep seeing this reference to Jews throughout your website. Are Jews not white people in your mind?
No, and in Jewish minds, white people are not related to them very much either.
By white people,
they don't consider white people Jews, and Jews should not consider Jews white people. Jews, in fact, have been the leading proponents behind the civil rights movement. In fact, the NAACP was led by Jews for much of its existence, and they have been working to undermine white Western civilization in many different ways. A quote by Barbara Lerner Specter is a very ominous one for white people, in which she says that multiculturalism is now coming to Europe, and Jews will be blamed for it because they're playing a leading role. They've done the same thing in the United States as well. They are not white. In fact, they are often anti-white.
Okay. So I'm curious, Kyle, when did you realize that as a white guy you were oppressed?
Well, let me tell you about affirmative action in which white people, and there are a lot of poor white people. Have you ever been to Appalachia?
I have.
White people are being oppressed in that they are victims of racism and discrimination. They are targeted and not allowed to have certain jobs, and are not allowed to basically get into the same kinds of educational institutions as people who are less qualified than them are. And it's based solely on the color of the skin. The fact that they are white hinders them from getting the same kinds of opportunities
so where is
anyone else, including illegal immigrants often, are able to get.
Okay, I'd still like to get back to the question, if you don't mind, and I don't mean this, I genuinely am not going to pick on you or ridicule you or anything like that. I was just curious if you could share with us, your personal story of what was the epiphany for you that caused you to realize that you or that white people like you are oppressed.
Are in danger?
Yeah.
Okay, well, how about when Jamie Foxx is on Saturday Night Live and he says, "I kill all the white people in the movie." How great is that? And then
in Django,
the audience applauds. Yeah, he's promoting Django Unchained. Let's talk about another movie that recently came out, 12 Years a Slave. They're continuously bringing up this idea that every white person today needs to be collectively punished for the sins of slavery. Now, at the height of slavery, only 1.4% of all American whites actually owned slaves. And there were, in fact, many Jews, blacks, and American Indians who also owned slaves, but you're never going to see this represented in the movies or in the textbooks. And I don't know if you know this history, but there were a lot of white slaves in the colonies as well, right up until mainly white people fought to end the practice of slavery. But we don't get a whole lot of credit. They don't make inspirational stories about all of the white people who fought to end the...
Are you talking about the people who came over from Europe on indentures, lifetime indentures, who were
There were not only
slaves?
indentured servants, and oftentimes those indentured servants were treated worse than the black slaves. But there were 300,000 Irish slaves alone who were brought to the colonies. And this is never discussed. I'm part Irish myself, and I think it's a tragedy that
But the Irish slaves were able to blend in, assuming that your statement is accurate. I can't verify that, but I do know that there were people of all colors, including white people, who were essentially slaves, and in some cases overtly slaves. But within a generation, or if they could get away, they could blend into the Uber culture, into the larger culture, and nobody would question them. Whereas somebody with black skin couldn't do that.
Let's talk about the slaves in Europe. About 1.5 million slaves were kidnapped and taken as slaves in bondage by the North Africans, the Barbary pirates. I'm not sure if you know about that history. It was going on around the same time as African slave trade. And
but to this moment right now, Kyle, when did you realize that you were oppressed? What has motivated you to participate in this?
Because my people are being denigrated at every possible turn. The white man is being displaced, ridiculed, and
how has this affected you in your life?
Well, because I'm not allowed to even express my love of my race, a pride in our accomplishments. Can you imagine?
You're on the air right now talking to 3 million people. I mean, it's I'm not stopping you.
Well, as soon as somebody does express a pride in their race, if they're white, and only if they're white, then they're called a racist, a Nazi, a bigot, a white supremacist. A Klansman, as you've insinuated.
Well, don't you think that you are a white supremacist?
No. What have I said that has indicated that I consider white people to be able to lord supreme over everybody else?
Okay, so you don't think that other races are inferior to whites?
I love my race, and I'm willing to discuss our accomplishments and some of our downfalls and some of the sore points of our history that often go. Completely.
Okay. So if you don't mind, Kyle, I'm just again what I get it that some white guy in a community that has a lot of people of color in it who didn't get a job might think that he was racially discriminated against, or might even have been racially discriminated against, and would would go off on it. What happened to you? What brought you into this?
I saw that there is a genocide taking place, Tom. You can look at the UN's definition of genocide, which is first killing members of the group, or in whole or in part, 2, causing a serious bodily harm or mental harm.
So white people are being killed.
3, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. Any of these conditions, if they're met, it constitutes.
So how are white people being killed in a way that is genocide?
That does not need to even be the case. But I'll tell you what, Tom, white people are the victims of black-on-white crime at 39 times the rate of white-on-black crime. There's a serious epidemic going on in which white people are being targeted.
So you're afraid of black people?
I'm not afraid of black people. I'm talking about federal crime statistics which indicate that there is a serious problem going on. Have you not seen this knockout game where white people are being targeted?
Yeah, that Fox News started and has been promoting.
It's never called a hate crime. It's never called a hate crime because I'll tell you what, we don't have civil rights. White people don't have civil rights. And I'll give you a quote for this. This is from Mary Frances Berry, former chairwoman of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. She said, "Civil rights laws were not passed to protect the rights of white men and do not apply to them." This is a civil rights struggle, Tom.
Okay. I find the whole thing fascinating. Kyle Hunt, his website is whitemanmarch.com. Kyle, thanks for dropping by today.
Thank you, Tom.
Curious your thoughts on Kyle's thoughts right after this.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
That was interesting. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the cultural anthropology of this. What causes white people to think like this?